probably heard of it, stress. It's a big, everyone's talking about it, everyone's stressed out these days. People talk about stress management like it's some special thing you need to do. Well, in a way it is, but the ideal situation is to really know what stress is and have a self-awareness about yourself and where your stress levels are at. So therefore you can put a plan in place, which is really, in the business of designing a Mantastic Life, we talk about the role of the rest, relaxation, wellness coach that you need to learn how to fulfill, which manages and looks after your stress to recovery ratios. And unfortunately for a lot of guys out there, particularly in the Western world, their stress to recovery ratios are way out of balance or way out of whack, meaning that the stress that they're having in their life, mental stress, emotional stress, in some cases also physical stress, is financial stresses, all those things. The stresses are too great for them to recover from, and what that leads to is unease. So they go from, rather than have a Mantastic life where they feel at ease, their values are being fulfilled, and their health is well and looked after, they become uneasy. And unfortunately, when you have a chronic imbalance between stress and recovery, over time, that uneasiness leads to diseasiness, meaning you go from what you want, which is being at ease, to being in a state of disease, and that's when we're getting things like heart problems, cardiovascular disease, challenges like the big event, as Dr. John Tickell calls it. We're having strokes and heart attacks at younger ages, having diabetes, guys developing diabetes and other metabolic disorders, all due to this massive imbalance between stress and recovery and the coping mechanism that guys use. Okay, so let's have a look at what stress is. Stress is important, you can't live without it. Stress is your body's way of responding to a challenge, and what stress does is it fires up your physiology. So what is physiology? That sounds all technical. Physiology is pretty much how your bits work, or how your body works. Anatomy is your bits, physiology is how your bits work. And what we do is we use stress to meet and rise to challenges that we're faced with, which is perfect. We need that. The challenge is when the stress isn't acute stress, which is there for a bit then goes away, it's what we call chronic stress, where it's chronic in nature, it's long term, and we just can't escape it. Now, I'll give you an example of, I guess, the physiology and stress and how it works. And the best example, and the examples that you use most of the time, go back to the caveman days. So imagine Bob the caveman's out hunting for lunch, and up pops a saber-toothed tiger, if they were around at that era. I'm not sure, my history is not that great as far as the Paleolithic era or something like that. Anyway, so the tiger pops up and decides that Bob would make a nice lunch. So we have what we call the fight, flight, or freeze response. So I'll just say that again. Fight, which is fight, get ready to fight the tiger, Bob. Flight, which is run away from the tiger, or aim to run away from the tiger. Here they're quite pacey, so that can be a challenge. Or freeze, where Bob literally shits himself and stands there and becomes lunch. Now, to enable Bob, the caveman, to fight the tiger or to run away from the tiger, his physiology is going to have to change, and the stress response that he goes through is going to help him do that. It's going to help him fight or flight. Now, some examples of that would be his blood pressure is going to go up, his heart rate's going to go up, he's going to breathe deeper, so he's going to try and oxygenate the bloodstream so he can get more oxygen into the blood to get to his working muscles, because the muscles are going to have to work hard to fight or run away. He's going to release fat into the blood and sugars into the blood, so he's able to fuel those muscles. So there's some of the things. And he's going to be in a heightened state of alertness, his pupils will dilate, and he'll have lots more muscle tension. So they're the things that happen when we undergo a stress episode. Now, the challenge in Western society today is that a lot of people are undergoing that, but there's no release. It's not like Bob the caveman, where he ran it off by fleeing from the tiger, or he was actually died or was attacked and killed by the tiger, because then there's no more stress there either way. If he ran away from it, he's used the blood sugars and the fats and the muscle tension to get away. So he goes back eventually to a state of ease until the tiger pops up again. The challenge in today's society that a lot of us men are facing is that the stress is chronic, meaning day in, day out in our work and our home life, we have mental stress, emotional stress, and financial stress. So our stress to recovery ratios become highly imbalanced. If you use the example of a sprinter, a 100-meter sprinter like Usain Bolt, who's the man at the moment, his event is a classic example of acute stress followed by a bunch of recovery. And if you actually have a look at the body and the physiques of sprinters, they do look very, very healthy. If you look at the contrast to that, a chronic stress condition is your endurance athlete. And you'll find with a lot of the people who do a lot of the endurance work, they do look quite weathered and quite aged because they're constantly under chronic stress. And obviously, it will depend on their nutrition and recovery and all that stuff, which I won't go into now, on how they actually do recover from that chronic stress. But if you think about it like this, acute stress, good. Chronic stress, not good. Because it's the chronic stress that takes the body from an ease state to an unease state. And having a lot of chronic stress over a long period of time can lead to a disease state. And there's nothing fantastic at all about that, because that's going to affect your health significantly. So the next thing that happens with guys, I know this happened with me, particularly when I was pretty much burnt myself out by age 35, is I look for coping mechanisms to handle stress. And most coping mechanisms that guys go to these days, they're not healthy coping mechanisms, and we develop hurtful habits to cope with our imbalance between stress and recovery. Examples of that would be excessive alcohol consumption to switch off at the end of the day, in some cases drug taking to escape it, and also too eating a lot of the sugary foods like the chocolates and the treats and all that. So we end up with these three sort of, and there's more, but they're the three key vices that then obviously are used to help handle this stress, but then obviously lead to more stress as your health and fitness declines through developing those hurtful habits. So the goal of a great rest, relaxation, wellness coach, which essentially is you, is to be able to identify your stress levels and become self-aware of when your stress levels are getting too high and your values are not being fulfilled and you're feeling unfulfilled and edgy and tired, and then being able to put in a recovery plan, which we'll talk about in another video, which is how to become, the two key ingredients to becoming a great rest, relaxation and wellness coach. But the big thing that we wanted to get across in this video is to help you understand what stress is, why it's important, the difference between acute and chronic stress. In today's society with technology was meant to free us up. If you don't know how to use it well, you just can't get away from work all the time, so people just aren't getting those breaks that they used to get anymore. And what happens, this leads to escapism through self-medication and generally developing hurtful habits, which compromise your long-term health and take the body from an ease state to an unease state, and if not rectified, which is what we're all about at Mantastic Life, lead to a disease state. So make sure you check us out at www.mantasticlife.com. You can check out our story. You can have a look at our programs that we've put in place, the Busy Man's 12-week health and fitness plan, and also the business of designing Mantastic Life, which is all about helping guys just like you have a Mantastic life and have a life of ease versus dis-ease. We'll chat to you later.